Hello, everyone. I'm Thomas Viola, and today I'm going to be breaking down our latest power rankings updates for the NFL from your friends over at the GoldSheet. It's past week 3 now, and we've added yet another week of sample size to our NFL season. And as a result, our power rankings, they're getting sharper. We're starting to see the season take shape, find out who's for real and who's maybe not. So today, we're going to be talking about our biggest risers and fallers in the rankings through week 3. And of course, if you want to get the entire GoldSheet Power Rankings, you could do that right here in the link in the description of this video over on picksandparlays.com. All right, let's get into it here, starting with our first big riser this week, the San Francisco 49ers. They're 3-0 despite a parade of injuries. On the offensive side alone, you've got George Kittle, Brock Purdy, Juwan Jennings, and Brandon Ayuk have all missed time. And that's not even counting the 6 starters that you have on defense who are now on the IR for the 49ers, including Nick Bosa, who tore his ACL and is out for the season. Same old story when it comes to the 49ers here. Exactly the same as last year. You saw them having injury after injury last year, and that injury bug has just continued. But there's still a riser here today because, well, they just keep winning. Now, it's important to acknowledge some of the teams that they've beaten here on their way to 3-0. They beat the Saints, who are a dumpster fire, and they beat the Cardinals and the Seahawks, 2 division rivals who the jury is still out on. Personally, I'm ranking that Seahawks win just a little bit less because so many players from that Week 1 win now out of the lineup with injuries for the 49ers, and I think that while they're rising up the rankings right now, they need to start getting some pieces back before this dam breaks. I expect their Thursday night football matchup with the Rams next week to be their first real big test, but I could see them pulling out the victory here against the Jacksonville Jaguars this coming Sunday in week 4. Now, next up, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers, man, 3-0 and atop the AFC West. They look like the real deal. Jim Harbaugh has this team humming. Justin Herbert looks like an MVP. And they've been able to overcome some key offensive line injuries. Shout out to Joe Alt sliding into that left tackle spot, taking Rashawn Slater's place and filling in very admirably. But it's the defense that has been absolutely phenomenal for this Chargers team so far this season. They're 4th in EPA per play, 1st in success rate, and 1st in passing success rate. And that's continued even with Khalil Mack still out of the lineup with an elbow injury that's expected to keep him sidelined for a couple more weeks. Looking ahead at this team's schedule, they should be favored in pretty much every game they play in until mid-December. They've got a favorable schedule, and with the Chiefs already sitting in the hole, we could be looking at a new AFC West champion. We'll have to see. There's still plenty of season left to play, but this Chargers team is moving up the leaderboards for sure and moving up our GoldSheet Power Rankings. Our third big riser, we've got the Detroit Lions here. Their Week 1 loss to the Packers looks like a fluke now. Even without Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, their coordinators who departed for head coaching jobs this past offseason, this team still looks great. They beat the Ravens in Baltimore on Monday night, and GoldSheet still has the Ravens as its top-ranked team. Although that could be changing after the way their defense has been playing, but that's a story for a different video. This defense for Detroit, they might be worth keeping an eye on. Same old story as last season, again, for this team too. A lot of these games against good teams, it appears that they might be winning in shootouts, but Jared Goff and that offense looks like they're up to the task. There's still a big riser for us here on the GoldSheet Power Rankings. We'll have to see how that continues going into next week. Now, talking about some fallers, we've got the Dallas Cowboys first up in our list for biggest downgrades. Injuries, going to be a common theme hurting teams that get downgraded here. The Cowboys, they looked great against the Eagles in week 1, but that's proving to have been a week 1 Brazilian mirage. Now you've got CeeDee Lamb out for 3 to 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain. Guard Tyler Booker has a high ankle sprain and is doubtful for this week, adding to a list of offensive line injuries for this team that really doesn't have much depth beyond their admittedly very good starters. Meanwhile, on the defensive side of the ball, it's just going from bad to worse for them. They got cooked by Russell Wilson in week 2, even though they came out of that game with a win. But corner Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs, his counterpart, were both supposed to really be anchoring this defense. Bland's already missed 2 weeks, and now he's going to be coming back this week against the Packers, at least according to Jerry Jones. Meanwhile, Trayvon Diggs is now out of the lineup, and we don't know when he is going to return. He didn't finish the game last week. He had a shoulder injury, and Kenny Clark is hurt as well. This secondary for Dallas is really banged up. The offense is dealing with injuries too. It's going to come down to Dak getting into a lot of shootouts here, and now he's not going to have his top weapon in CeeDee Lamb to do it. Things are looking dire for the Cowboys just a few weeks into the season here. But not as dire maybe as the Houston Texans situation because, oh man, it has been brutal for this team. CJ Stroud has not been able to get this offense going, and a large part of that has to be because of the offensive line. This offense is 29th in EPA per play, 30th in success rate, and dead last in the league in rushing success rate. But it gets even worse than that somehow. Their rush success rate is just 24%. To put that in perspective for you, 18 teams in the league have a rush rate over 40%. That's bad. This offensive line has been a huge problem for this team, and quite frankly, it does not appear to be getting any better. The good news for the Texans is they do have an easier time on the schedule this week. They're 7-point favorites against the Tennessee Titans in a home divisional matchup, but just playing the Titans won't necessarily be a cure for everything that is ailing this team. There is a lot that needs to be fixed with this offense in order for them to get right. And last, but honestly, probably least, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals who top out our fallers list here on the Gold Sheet. No Joe Burrow means big problems for Cincy. Of course, under Zach Taylor, their first time ever starting out 2-0, and it's got to be the worst outlook that they've had for the season in recent memory. Joe Burrow is going to be out for several months with a turf toe, and they looked abysmal against the Minnesota Vikings this past weekend, who are also playing with a backup quarterback. But that Vikings defense absolutely shut down Jake Browning, who we do feel is a very capable backup, especially with the litany of weapons that the Bengals have. You've got Jamar Chase, you've got Chase Brown, you've got T. Higgins, but they just went down so early, and that defense is so terrible. You really need a quarterback like Joe Burrow who can power your offense and cover up for a lot of these areas that this team just frankly has holes in that you can't really fill when you're paying 4 of your players on your roster more than 15% of your cap. It's an absolutely brutal situation for how this Cincinnati team is set up and what they have to deal with now with Joe Burrow being out for several months and maybe the season if it's already a lost cause by the time he comes back. We'll have to see, but there's lots of weak spots and no Joe Burrow to help them. It is not looking pretty in Cincinnati, and that is going to be a very big problem for them, and it's why they are last on our list here for Gold Sheet's Power Rankings Fallers. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for us. There's your top 3 risers and fallers for this week. Of course, again, if you want to check out all of the Gold Sheet's Power Rankings, you can do that at the link below, picksandparlays.com. We have access to everyone on the Gold Sheets list, and we also have college football power rankings, which you can check out in this video. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week.